Imagine dancing for hours, days, or even weeks without stopping. That's what thousands of people did in the 1920s to late 1930s, when dance marathons, or walkathons as they were also known, became a popular cultural and controversial phenomenon. These events were not just dance contests, but also human endurance contests or exploitative entertainment events, depending on your perspective. In these dance contests, a combination of local amateurs and experienced professionals danced, walked, shuffled, sprinted, and sometimes broke down under the strain and fatigue of constant motion. For a quarter, spectators could watch as long as they wanted, while couples competed for cash prizes by dancing up to hundreds of hours non-stop for as long as a month or two at a time. Originating from the jazz age craze, endurance feats such as flagpole sitting and six-day cycling events captivated large audiences. Similarly, dance marathons drew these same spectators who were enthralled by watching contestants endure, agonize, and occasionally collapse on the dance floor. Early on, many had already begun to question the ethics of such events, arguing that they were nothing more than a cruel exploitation of human endurance for the sake of entertainment and profit. These marathons had a low reputation in society, and many towns outlawed them, finding them troublesome, upsetting, and even disgusting. The first dance marathon record was set by Ole Finnerty and Edgar Van Olefin, who danced for 7 hours non-stop in Sunderland, England on February 18, 1923. But it was Alma Cummings, a dance instructor from New York, who sparked the craze in America. She danced for 27 hours straight with 6 different partners at the Audubon Ballroom in New York City on March 2, 1923. Within 3 weeks, her record was broken at least 9 times across the country. The revival of the Olympic Games in 1896 had created a widespread interest in feats of strength, endurance contests, and world records. Dance marathons tapped into this fascination as well as the popularity of social dancing and jazz music in the 1920s. They also provided a form of escapism and entertainment for the masses. Women made up to 75% of the audience who paid to watch the drama and spectacle of the events. Originally called walkathons to conform to a society that largely disapproved of dancing, these events, later known as Bunyan Derbies or Corn and Callus Carnivals, saw a rise in respectability. This was influenced by respected dance duos like married couple Vernon and Irene Castle, who helped soften the public's view on dancing, despite many churches still regarding it as sinful at the time. Dance marathons were a mix of real endurance tests and staged entertainment. Professional contestants, often acting as amateurs, mingled with genuine hopefuls under the supervision of floor judges, an MC, and the relentless clock to create interactive theater. Both grim spectacle and vaudeville-style amusement, dance marathons offered a cheap opportunity for audiences to be engaged and entertained. Top contestants competed for the chance to win hundreds, and occasionally, thousands of dollars, while promoters of a successful dance marathon made much more. Promoters looked for what they called virgin spots, which were towns where a marathon had not been held yet. Publicity stunts and massive advertising were needed to attract large crowds. These virgin towns also had the benefit of a population that had not been cheated by dishonest promoters who had left town without paying their bills. Promoters tried to get local sponsors such as the Veterans of Foreign Wars or the American Legion's support to boost their respectability. Participants danced for hours on end with minimal breaks for rest or food. The conditions were harsh, the floors were hard, and the rules strict, allowing for only brief periods of sleep. Contestants often danced to the point of exhaustion, and injuries were common. On April 14, 1923, Homer Morehouse, aged 27, collapsed and died on the dance floor after dancing with his partner for 87 consecutive hours. Soon after this, the city of Boston banned dance marathons. Then, in 1928, Gladys Lenz danced for 19 straight hours at a Seattle marathon, despite being punched in the face by a partner who appeared to be suffering from fatigue-induced psychosis. The couple received $50 for coming fifth while the winning couple won $1,000. Lenz attempted suicide soon after, and within a year of this event, Seattle also banned dance marathons. Dance marathons became a lucrative and widespread business, employing an estimated 20,000 people from promoters, masters of ceremonies, floor judges, trainers, to doctors, nurses, and contestants. As the economy collapsed in 1929, dance marathons boomed, offering contestants cash prizes equivalent to a year's salary. They gave contestants and spectators a place to eat, sleep, and socialize at a time when many people were homeless and hungry, many of whom were desperate for a way to survive during the Great Depression. These events also gave spectators the opportunity to feel superior and perhaps pity someone else for a while. Dance marathons were not just about dancing, but also about staying on your feet and moving for as long as possible. The events were usually held in large venues such as ballrooms, theaters, or arenas. A live band played music at night, while a radio or record player often sufficed during the day. The rules varied from event to event, but generally participants had to remain upright and moving for 45 minutes out of every hour, around the clock. They could not sit, lean, or sleep on the dance floor, or they would be disqualified. They could only rest during the 15-minute breaks that were announced by a horn every few hours. During these breaks, they could go to the rest areas, which were sometimes set up on the dance floor and were segregated by gender. There, they could sleep on cots, eat, drink, change clothes, or receive medical attention. Contestants trained themselves to fall asleep as soon as they hit the cots, and to wake up as soon as the horn sounded again. Women who did not get up were given smelling salts and sometimes slapped. Men who were slow to wake up were sometimes dragged or carried to the dance floor by their partners or trainers. The music was mostly jazz, swing, or pop, but sometimes classical or folk music was played to change the mood or pace. Contestants were expected to dance full out during the heavily attended evening hours when the audience was most attentive and the promoters made the most money. They also had to perform in special events such as sprints, derbies, or grinds, which were designed to eliminate the weaker contestants or to spice up the show. Sprints were fast-paced dances that lasted for a few minutes and required the contestants to keep up with the tempo or be disqualified. Derbies were races around the dance floor where the last couple to cross the finish line was eliminated. Grinds were slow dances that lasted for hours and tested the stamina and willpower of the contestants. The duration of the events varied, but some of them lasted for weeks or even months. The longest recorded dance marathon was held in Chicago in 1930 and lasted for 3,780 hours, or 157 days. The winners were Mike Retoff and Edith Boudreau, who received $2,000 as the prize. The average duration of a dance marathon was about 1,000 hours, or 41 days. The number of contestants also varied, but some of them started with hundreds of couples and ended with only a few. The winners were usually determined by the last couple standing, or by a final vote from the audience or the judges. Dance contests faced opposition from movie theater owners who had lost customers due to the marathons. Churches and women's groups protested on moral grounds, stating that the contestants hugged each other inappropriately instead of dancing respectfully, and on humanitarian grounds saying that it was wrong to make money from watching exhausted contestants degrade themselves. The police noticed that marathons drew what they believed were a bad crowd to their towns, because the marathon promoters and professional dancers, who usually won the money, were only interested in short-term profit. This profit was significant for those who got it. Dance marathons were among the most popular and controversial forms of live entertainment in America. The industry employed about 20,000 people as promoters, MCs, judges, trainers, nurses, and contestants. In Washington towns where dance contests happened, newspapers and radio stations got advertising money. Venues were rented and licenses were paid. Local businesses got publicity from sponsoring the events. Food stalls for the audience and the contestants also made money. Dance contests started with a lot of hype from the promoters' agents. Each big promoter had a group of dancers, called horses because they could last long, he relied on to run his event. These professionals, often former vaudeville performers who could sing and joke and entertain the crowd at night, traveled on the promoter's dime and knew the secrets of the contests, including the fact that the results were often rigged or fixed. Professionals known as experienced couples tried to fit in with the hopeful and often desperate amateurs. For all contestants, joining a dance contest meant having a place to stay and food to eat, both hard to find in the 1930s. President Herbert Hoover's promised prosperity, just around the corner, never came for most Americans, but dance contestants hoped for the prize money at the end of the final round. Contestants who danced in pairs had to keep moving, lifting one foot then the other, 45 minutes every hour, day and night. Dancing sometimes meant shuffling while shaving with a special mirror around the female partner's neck, writing letters on a special desk around one's own neck, reading the newspaper, knitting, or even sleeping while the partner held them up. The carrier in such a pair often tied the lugging partner's wrists with a handkerchief and hung them around the carrier's neck for extra safety. Women carried their sleeping male partners, even though they were taller and heavier. The women kept going and the men mostly gave up. Audiences were vastly different between the day and night events. The varying crowds reflected the broad appeal of these marathons across different social strata, as these events attracted diverse audiences. During the earlier matinee performances, it was common for housewives and seniors to arrive with young children, while they knitted and ate homemade lunches. These spectators often engaged with their favorite contestants, offering them advice and small gifts. After school, teenage fans often visited the dance marathons to socialize with contestants who were close to their own age, admiring them for leading lives of perceived glamour and sophistication, which they themselves aspired to achieve. The elite attended dance marathons frequently as a trendy form of slumming, attracted by the unique and entertaining spectacle these events offered. Couples and blue-collar workers regularly came after work or a night at the movies to watch the endurance and drama at these events. Mobsters, pimps, and prostitutes were also attracted to the events that took place later at night, as it was a good place to do business and offered lucrative gambling opportunities. Behind the scenes, medical services were a public spectacle. Contestants, driven to their physical and mental limits, received treatment in full view of the audience. Doctors and nurses hovered at the sidelines, ready to swoop in at the first sign of a breakdown. From blistered feet to exhaustion-induced delirium, the medical toll of these marathons was a spectacle unto itself. Yet, it wasn't just the physical strain that was on display. The mental toll was equally visible, with contestants often succumbing to hallucinations and hysteria. Many dancers would fall asleep while dancing and their partners would physically support them to prevent their knees from touching the floor, which would disqualify them from the competition. The floor judge would sometimes use a ruler to tap the legs of couples who were not moving fast enough to keep them going. The relentless grind of the marathon, the lack of sleep, the constant motion. All these factors combined to create a pressure cooker environment that pushed contestants to their psychological limits. As the popularity of dance marathons grew, so did the intensity of the competition. Contestants needed to keep their feet moving at all times, but that didn't stop them from engaging in a variety of activities on the dance floor. They shaved, wrote, washed, ate, and even engaged in intimate acts, all in a bid to demonstrate their extraordinary stamina and attract the audience's attention. The dance marathons became a theater of the absurd, where reality blurred with fiction. Contestants faked injuries, illnesses, or collapses, choreographed by the promoters or the contestants themselves to stir sympathy or suspense. Yet the spectacle did not stop there. The dance floor also served as a wedding aisle for some. In a brazen publicity stunt, couples got married on the dance floor, basking in the limelight to gain more attention and support. Some of these marriages were real, binding the couples in holy matrimony, while others were mere illusions, dissolved or annulled once the contest ended. To keep interest, organizers came up with outrageous challenges like dancing backwards and zombie treadmills, where participants would try to outrace each other chained or tied and blindfolded. The crowning jewel of these extreme stunts came when contestants were frozen in a block of ice. A stunt so outrageous, it pushed the boundaries of human endurance and spectacle to a whole new level, leaving spectators in awe and disbelief. Where couples would be encased in ice and paid $1 for each minute they withstand the cold. Amidst the whirlwind of dance marathons, tales of notable individuals emerged. Some famous people participated in these marathons either as contestants or as spectators. Clara Bow, a popular silent film actress, entered a dance marathon in 1928 with her co-star Rex Bell, but they withdrew after 15 hours. Frank Sinatra was a regular visitor to the Atlantic City Dance Marathon in 1932, where he sang for the contestants and the audience. June Havoc, a vaudeville and Broadway star, commenced her marathon career at a mere 14 years old, enduring a staggering 3,000-hour dance session, and inspiring her to later pen the acclaimed play, Marathon 33. Singer Anita O'Day's journey was equally compelling, leaving school at 14 to dive into marathon dancing, only to be redirected back to academics by a vigilant truant officer after 2 years of tireless performances, including a memorable 97-day dance in Springfield, Illinois, where she clinched second place. Meanwhile, Horace McCoy, a budding novelist and screenwriter, found inspiration as a bouncer at these marathons, later crafting the poignant novel, They Shoot Horses, Don't They?, which was later adapted into an Oscar-winning film in 1969. Dance marathons were not without controversy, as they faced opposition from various groups and individuals who considered them immoral, inhumane, or illegal. With some of the dancers being as young as 12 years old at the time, religious leaders denounced the events as sinful, immoral, and corrupting. They objected to the mixing of sexes, the exposure of flesh, and the violation of the Sabbath. They also accused the promoters of exploiting the contestants and the audience for profit. Medical professionals warned about the health risks and dangers of the events. They claimed that the contestants suffered from exhaustion, dehydration, malnutrition, infections, hallucinations, and mental breakdowns. They also reported cases of death, miscarriage, and suicide among the participants. Social reformers campaigned for the welfare and rights of the contestants. They argued that the events were a form of slavery, torture, and human trafficking. They also exposed the abuses and frauds that occurred in these events, such as doping, bribery, cheating, and rigging. Government officials passed laws and ordinances to ban or regulate the events. Citing public safety, morality, and nuisance as the reasons for their actions, they enforced taxes, licenses, or inspections on the promoters and the venues. Despite the opposition, dance marathons continued to thrive until the late 1930s, when they faded from the cultural landscape for a variety of reasons. The emergence of new forms of entertainment such as movies, radio, and television offered more variety and convenience to audiences. The improvement of the economy reduced the desperation and need of the contestants and the spectators. The change of social norms made these marathon events less appealing and acceptable to the public. And most importantly, with the outbreak of World War II, mindsets shifted, as the public's attention and resources were suddenly focused on the global conflict, with many participants and spectators having been registered for the draft or enlisted. If you enjoyed this video, please take a moment to like and subscribe to our channel. These are other videos you may enjoy. Thanks for watching.